Live from downtown Vancouver at the Vancouver Film School campus, it's time for EP Live. Hey, welcome to EPN. My name is Victor Lucas, and we bring you the latest in everything cool every single day, and it is fantastic to see you here. Happy Friday, everybody. I'm bringing up my email there by accident. It's good to see you. Hope you've had a fantastic week. We've got a very, very busy and packed show for you today. We are trying to get everything completed before we get into the Rocket and Reagan Awards, and speaking of which, we are on the road to the Rocket and Reagans today with a look at the best games of the decade. And it is an exhaustingly long list. So with your help, we will pare it down, and we will give away some Rocket and Reagan Awards to the best games of the last decade, as well as from 2019. So we've got a lot of work to do together, okay, guys? But first, we have a rundown to get to, and this one is dedicated to D-Side Botham, who says he appreciates my hard work. I found you from the Happy Console Gamer channel, and have been watching EPN for a while now. Thank you so much. This rundown is all yours. Death Stranding is about to get a little less frustrating to play. The game's first big update has been unveiled, and it's coming with two big changes that players have been demanding. The first change is that the massive packages on your back will now become semi-transparent at certain times, so they don't cover up and hide the world around you. The second change is even better. You'll now be able to delete in-game vehicles when they block the entrances to buildings, which is something ne'er-do-wells have been intentionally doing as a way to grief other players. This is something the developers didn't intend, and obviously makes the game even more frustrating than it was meant to be. The update lands in mid-December. I didn't have any issues where I had a vehicle blocking my path or anything like that, but I think it's pretty cool that you can delete stuff that's in your way for sure, and you know, anything to make it easier to traverse in this world is appreciated. Thank you, Mr. Kojima and the whole team over there, Kojima Productions. But I have to be truthful. I'm done with Death Stranding. I might come back if there's some cool DLC or something like that. But I paid my penance with that game. I finished it. I did all of my journeys through that game. I connected cities together, and I brought the United Cities of America back together. And I'm very proud of that fact. But yeah, it's time for me to be playing other things out there and get into the Rocket and Reagan spirit for sure. All right, now Disney is shrinking things down a bit with a tiny new project. A big screen reboot of the classic film Honey, I Shrunk the Kids is on the way. And according to the Hollywood Reporter, Disney is developing the new film with Josh Gad set to star. I love that guy. And best of all, the original film's director Joe Johnston is in talks to direct once again. Love him too. The first film came out in 1989 and was followed by a series of theatrical and straight-to-video sequels, but the new movie will be the first one made with Joe Johnston's involvement since the original. No word yet on when shooting might begin. Joe Johnston, of course, also did the Captain America First Avenger, and he also did The Rocketeer. He was part of the Raiders of the Lost Ark kind of lineage and worked with Lucas and Spielberg. Fantastic filmmaker, great, aesthetics, great idea of how to put the image together to make interesting-looking movies. And if anybody remembers that first Honey, I Shrunk the Kids movie with Rick Moranis, it was phenomenal. It was so funny. And it would be great if they found a way to get Rick Moranis back into this thing, because I know one of the coolest things that he did is that he retired from being an actor and went to raise his children. It's an amazing story. If you haven't heard anything about why we haven't seen Rick Moranis in a long time, read up on that. The man is a legend. Really cool, and I appreciate so much that he gave his life back to his kids like that. That's really cool. But I love that this project is coming together. It is one of these evergreen kind of ideas that can be revisited over and over again. Usually, I'm a little averse to, the remake-itis that Hollywood seems to have. But I think this one actually makes a lot of sense, particularly in the era of the Disney Plus kind of streaming platform. If this is successful, I could envision something like this with this technology and this kind of sense of humor and zaniness as a series that might end up on Disney Plus, which could be really cool. And I've got another little side note. I just read that they're making an Aladdin live-action spin-off show on Disney Plus with the actor that played the prince, with the crazy accent. I forget what his name is, but they're going to do a whole side story thing. Just read that today, and it's kind of a wacky idea, but it shows that Disney Plus can go off on a bunch of different tangents. Now, speaking of streaming services, Netflix is finding the world of organized crime to be very profitable. The new Martin Scorsese mafia movie, The Irishman, was streamed by more than 17 million people in its first 5 days of release on Netflix. This makes it one of the most popular Netflix original movies yet. Netflix stepped in to finance the film after it was rejected by all the traditional movie studios, probably because most people wouldn't go to the theaters to watch a 3.5-hour-long movie these days, at least not in wide release. But that doesn't mean that they won't sit and watch it at home. Netflix doesn't just want The Irishman to win over audiences. They also want it to be the first streaming They want to be the first streaming platform to win a Best Picture Oscar. So we'll have to wait and see if that happens. I think there's going to be a lot of buzz for this movie with the Academy Awards. There's some incredible work in this movie. I've seen people actually comment on my review, which you can watch on the channel here, saying that it's not Scorsese's best and it's not as good as Casino or Goodfellas and stuff like that. And, you know, all of that stuff is clearly subjective. But one of the things that this movie does that a lot of the other films that he's done don't quite reach is that we see these characters age through a vast chunk of time and through the use of the de-aging technology. And you see what happens with these people that survive the heinous acts that they create and the loneliness. And you start to, I don't know, there's this melancholy kind of empathetic vibe associated with the movie, which is kind of refreshing. You know, it's kind of like, There's a glamour to all the mafia stuff that Scorsese has done, but The Irishman kind of paints the picture of the repercussions, and I thought that was some really, really good work. And, you know, the loneliness and the sadness in especially De Niro's eyes by the end is just heartbreaking. But he made some poor choices, and it's all based on real stories, which is crazy. All right, now, Joker is such a hit that it's starting to make other supervillains a little more evil. The next Venom movie might have an R rating following the blockbuster success of the R-rated Joker movie. Speaking with Cinema Blend, producer Matt Tolmach says that they're thinking about making the upcoming sequel a little more violent and edgy thanks to the success of not just Joker, but other R-rated superhero movies like Deadpool and Logan, which have shown that audiences have an appetite for R-rated superhero adventures. The Venom sequel is currently in pre-production and will hit theaters next year. You know, I didn't hate the Venom movie, and I was surprised that I didn't because it looked insane. And it is insane, but there's an entertainment value in that. Tom Hardy threw himself into the role, literally and figuratively, and he had a good time with it. He recognized the campiness that was available to him, and he went for it. But yeah, there's a lot to build on there, and you know, presumably they're going to work Tom Holland's Spider-Man into this because Sony is definitely going to flesh out the Spider-Verse in some interesting ways. So hopefully it's a better movie, you know, with better stakes and bigger stakes and more action. But it sort of works with stuff that's been going on with the MCU in a way, even though it won't tie into that. And it'll be weird if it's R-rated, but you know, Logan was R-rated and it worked fine with its connections to the X universe as well. So, yeah, these are interesting days. But you know, people often express their exhaustion with the superhero genre. But the superhero genre is really a mesh of many, many different kinds of genres. There's many different ways to approach this content and approach these stories, as is evidenced by the millions of comic books that have been made since you know, Superman made superheroes big in the 30s. So there's lots of ways that these filmmakers can broach this subject matter and make interesting content, and audiences, as Joker just showed, will show up for that. So. The first Venom was big, and I think Venom 2 has the propensity to be even much, much larger. All right, you guys, that is our rundown for today. Let's take a look back at this day in everything cool. Welcome to This Day in Everything Cool for December 6th. On this day in 1992, Japanese gamers got to ride their chocobos into a new kind of fantasy. Square released the RPG Final Fantasy V on the Super Nintendo, or Super Famicom in Japan. It took many of the tried and true elements from the previous games and refined them. For starters, the character customization was much more in-depth, with particular attention paid to the job system. It had been introduced in Final Fantasy III, but this time around, players had a lot more jobs than ever before, allowing them to gain gain more abilities and then use them with a new kind of experience point system called ability points, which could be used separately from traditional XP. The active time battle system, which had debuted in Final Fantasy IV, was also greatly improved. It now had a gauge that let players know when a character's turn was coming up, which made the combat much more fast-paced and fluid. Final Fantasy V was a big hit in Japan, but sadly, Western gamers were left out. It wouldn't get an official release in North America until 1999, when it was ported over to the original PlayStation. Because Square had skipped 5 along with 3 and 4 in North America, the next game, Final Fantasy VI, was renamed Final Fantasy III for its initial North American launch. This is something that still causes confusion to this day. We are back, and it's Friday, so you know what that means. New episode of The Mandalorian came out today. I've got some thoughts. Man, I love this show. The Mandalorian Episode 5 is a nice, tight episode. It almost feels like a standalone, kind of like an anthology little piece comparative to the rest of the storyline that's happening in this first season. We land on a very familiar Star Wars planet, and right away the Mandalorian is introduced to a scoundrel, an up-and-coming bounty hunter that could use a little bit of the expertise and the skills that the Mandalorian has. And those two venture off to track down a very skilled adversary and encounter some familiar scenery and some familiar types of characters that we've seen in Star Wars lore before. And Ming-Na Wen is also a great cast member in this episode, but I'm going to try not to reveal too much. Baby Yoda meets a new friend in this episode, played by Amy Sedaris, and she's totally wearing, and it kind of looks like she's paying homage to Ripley from the Alien movies.
Get away from her, you bitch!
I don't know if that was on purpose, but that's what I kind of saw in her outfit, her jumper, and her curly pompadour kind of style hair. She's cool. She's kind of badass there. She's got some little droid buddies and stuff that are fun to watch. Honestly, I love the fact that the Mandalorian is constantly getting shot at, and he's not the most skilled person in the world. He's got some incredible skills and an incredible sense of calm and patience under harrowing circumstances. He's always got this ability to, just kind of deal with it. And I love that. He gets kicked around a lot and shot at, beat up, which I dig. I really, really was impressed with this story. I'm trying to be as vague as possible as I can be with this thing. This is a great standalone experience. It doesn't really need to be connected to anything else that you've seen with The Mandalorian. Complete fan service. We see stormtrooper helmets on spikes. The effects were pretty damn cool. Starts off with a pretty fantastic space battle, which really gets you into the mood right off the jump. The one thing that I will say about this episode and this show is that I feel like the producers of The Mandalorian have forgotten that the Star Wars universe is dirty and dingy and dusty. It feels like all of the clothing that's in The Mandalorian, especially in this episode, it really stood out to me. It's also fresh and brand new and uncreased, and there's no smudges on it. There's no real dust or dirt on it. And I was like paying close attention to that. I watched the episode a couple of times. I'm like, wow, it does feel like all of these are just fresh right off the racks off the Star Wars costume building or something like that. And I want there to be a little bit more grit, But I'm nitpicking because this is fantastic Star Wars TV, and it really does feel like it was something crafted right after the movies came out in the 70s and 80s. It feels like this would have been primetime going up against Battlestar Galactica, and it would have crushed Battlestar Galactica. Obviously, all the effects are modern and all that stuff, but it's just so cool. This episode from start to finish was pretty damn sweet. The Mandalorian's been mostly this, with a couple of little tiny dips, but this is going right back up. One of my favorite episodes so far of this first season. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Okay. We're back. All right, we are live. Hold on, I'm just making the EP logo play at normal speed. Okay, you guys, we have got the Rocket and Ray Gun Awards coming up, and they're very special this year because it is the end of another decade. Can you believe it? We have made, many of you have been watching EP for multiple decades now, which blows my mind. But we have made it to the end of another one, and there have been tons of incredible games that have come out since 2010. So we're going from 2010 to 2019, and I thought this would be a good way to get us all talking about it. And the way that we're doing the Rocket and Ray Gun Awards this year, which is going to start running on December 16th, is we want everybody to participate. Anybody that's watching this video, if you want to take some time to shoot us a video of your own picks, please do that. And you'll use Twitter or Facebook, or you can message us through YouTube somehow. But just put the hashtag Rocket and Ray Guns 2019 on it so we know what it is. Send us a link. I think the easiest thing to do is to post your videos to an unlisted service on like YouTube or Google Drive or something like that, and then send us a link for that. So I'm reminding you at the top, and I'll also remind you again afterwards, but this is going to be for the games of the decade and also for all of the other different categories. So one thing I want to talk about with the games of the decade is that it's not just the game of the decade that I want to focus on. I also want to give specific awards to the best RPG of the decade, the best sports franchise of the decade, the best action game of the decade, best action adventure, best racing, best fighting, and the game of the decade. So keep those in mind. I'll post all of this stuff as a textual thing so that people can get that, as well as all of the other categories that are going to be in the Rocket and Reagan. That's what next week's content is going to be about, is underlying what we need. And hopefully, if you want to participate and be a part of the shows running from December 16th, we'll get all of those videos in by the end of next week. All right, so let's talk about the best games of the decade. And Blake wanted to not go crazy on tons and tons of B-roll because there's an immense list here, and I'm sure you guys are going to have lots of other great ideas, and you can comment below and let me know. But he said, what are your 10 favorites that you can think of right now? And this was kind of off the cuff. I didn't have tons of time to kind of like go through every emotion that I had, and I may have missed one or two is what I'm saying. But starting with Zelda, Breath of the Wild, which I think I'm calling it's my favorite game of all time. You know, like it's such a phenomenal experience, an incredible escape, and there's so much emergent gameplay just by trying stuff. You know, the physics engine in that game is wonderful, and the freedom is wonderful, and it was so beautiful to look at, and what a stellar way to launch a new platform like they did with the Switch. I've talked about that a lot. I love the Batman Arkham series. I think if I'm going to isolate like a trilogy or a franchise or something like that of games, it's probably that one that I like more than anything. And Batman Arkham City, I think, is the happy middle ground. I think I gave that game a 12 out of 10 when it came out because it blew my freaking mind. So I'm putting Batman Arkham City in that mix right there. I can't remember what year it came out, like 2011. Thank you, Kurt. I thought that was awesome. I also loved SpiderMan from Insomniac last year, which was our Game of the Year winner. And it wouldn't exist in the shape that it is without the fine work that Rocksteady had put into Batman. We all know that. Insomniac knows that. But Spider-Man was sensational. And the freedom that you felt as the character and the beautiful visuals of Manhattan that Insomniac created for us, all the people walking around, just an incredible game. And so filled with joy and color, you know, except for the cinematically dark stuff. But yeah, what a wonderful game that is. The contrast to that is the darkness and the bleakness of The Last of Us, which is probably one of the most powerfully emotional games I've ever played. It's just, it's like we really witnessed humankind's darkest behavior in The Last of Us, and it's palpable. And I remember feeling the tension of the moment when a weapon is brandished in front of somebody, and you feel really distinct fear for their lives, and you feel the impact of the bullets or the hits from a crowbar, and then the unending terror of all these clickers coming after you. It's a phenomenal experience. I don't know how they're going to top it with Last of Us 2, but I can't wait to find out. Red Dead Redemption, the first one, which I think was a 2010 game. That's one of my favorite games of all time. And I chose these games based on the emotional power that they had. And I remember feeling so connected to Marston and his family and the story that was relayed for me that I felt real melancholy when I concluded that game. And it still stays with me. And I found it to be much more effective and powerful than the more beautiful Red Dead Redemption 2. God of War, similarly emotionally powerful. I don't think that game would exist without the fine work that Naughty Dog had invested in Uncharted and in Last of Us. But God of War, made this kind of one-note character of Kratos, who I've always loved. He's a great action character, but they made him have resonance and meaning and connection, and made all of his combat moves and all of his choices have much more meaning and have much more value. And yeah, it's a beautiful game that was huge, but also edited down and refined, so it wasn't out of control. It's a wonderful, wonderful game. Skyrim, I think, is the opposite of that. It's a game that is massive and overwhelming and too huge, and it's too cluttered, and you do things that are a little superfluous, but it is that freedom of discovery and that way to play the game any way that you want to, which I think has made that game eminently reportable. You know, it's put on everything, including Alexa. You know, like they've been able to bring that game to everybody. I'm surprised there is not an Apple Watch version of Skyrim yet, and I will probably play it when it comes out. But Bethesda struck gold with that game when it came out. It really, I think, is the best distillation of that Fallout and Elder Scrolls type gameplay, and it's a wonderful, wonderful experience. Yeah, and Titanfall 2 is on there as well because I love the shooter genre, and it's crowded, and it's sometimes difficult to kind of pick the highlight ones out there. You know, of course, you can look back at Modern Warfare, even the recent one, amazing. There's lots of really, really good ones, but Titanfall 2, when I think of that game, it's hard for me to think of a cooler first-person shooter. It delivers on all kinds of great multiplayer action where you can play on foot or in mechs in lots of different types of ways. But the story was really shockingly good. No one expected that game to have a single-player experience that was that tight. And it stood the test of time. It's still beautiful today. It's still a wonderful escape, and the community is still large. I am one of the many out there that really hopes Respawn hasn't forgotten us and will make us a Titanfall 3. But Titanfall 2, I think, is my favorite shooter of the last decade. Mario Odyssey for the Switch. What a gangbuster year they had in 2017, bracketed by Zelda and Odyssey. A great, almost tip of the cap to Mario 64 and all of the great work that Nintendo kind of crafted in the 3D space to begin with. That's new. We've got a fire alarm going off. Wow, we've never had one of those. I guess we gotta go. We gotta go. Wow. I hope there is not a fire in this school, but we have got a fire alarm going. So I don't see. We'll come back if we can. And I'll pick it up with Mario Odyssey. Okay. Hey, welcome back. Yeah, that's a false alarm. They haven't turned it off yet, though, so I'll just chat with you guys while we're doing this. This has never happened on EP before. It's been a year of doing things we've never done before, and it's super fun. Just trying to find the chat window here. 1 second. Thanks for sticking with us while we have this technical difficulty of a fire alarm. It's a false alarm. We are on Hastings Street here in Vancouver, which can be a little rough and tumble, and apparently some guy just walked into one of the spaces here at Vancouver Film School and yanked the fire alarm and walked out the door. So thank you, asshole, for doing that. So all kinds of students and staff and everybody was out on the street there for a bit. So we are back, though. We're live for now. I don't know how long we'll go with the alarm just going off like this, but I'm certainly not going to start, because what Blake is going to do is he's going to cut the conversation that we've had and put it all together into one nice bit. So he'll chop out the alarm sequence here. I don't know, how does it sound? It's good to see Adrian and Marco and Blair Farrell, VR Grid. I feel like I'm on CNN or something. Like this is like live breaking news right now, you know? Inti Fan, good to see you. Doom Guy 2233. This is live. This is a live show with the alarm going off. It'd be amazing if like firefighters busted in here and just dragged me right off camera. I said, "What the hell are you doing, man?" Let's see, what do we got here? Did the fire alarm remind you of Firewatch, Uncle Jay says. That's good. That's good. Great game. We'll do it. F it. We'll do it live. Yeah, That's what we do around here. We just go for it. We go live. Let's see. Ask me questions. Let's do a little Let's Play and Chat because we're eating into that time. So go ahead and ask me any questions about stuff. Breaking news, VFS troll yanks alarm over exams and EPN. Yes, some troll did it. Red alert. Hey, Vic. That's from Jeff Meacham. Good to see you. Blair Farrell just saw Gremlins in the theater. That would be very, very fun to see. My kid keeps running out of the room every time I put Gremlins on. It's a Christmas movie, but she doesn't want to watch that yet. It's not quite there yet. She also did that with Empire Strikes Back. I'm trying to get her to watch all the movies before Rise of Skywalker comes out, but she's like, nah, I don't want to watch Empire Strikes Back. I'm like, Ruby, it's the best one. You're going to love it. She ran away. I can't tell you what's going on with Rise of Skywalker, but it's very cool. Something very cool is happening for Film Fury and Rise of Skywalker. You guys will see soon. Someone hated my list. Somebody, what's a YouTube says? I guess so. Sam I Am 111, what is your favorite firefighter game? You know, there have been a couple of good ones. There was a Sega Saturn game that was pretty cool. Do you remember what that was? I forget the name of it. Like Burning Chaos or something like that. And there was a Nintendo Wii game, which was okay. And actually, Rocksteady made a game where I think you could bounce. Oh my goodness. Woo! Oh, freedom. That's good. That's good. I know, right? I guess that's what it would be like calling a wrestling game or something like that with all the fans yelling. Like those poor people in their eardrums. Okay. All right, we will endeavor to get into some Let's Play and Chat in a second here. Let's go back to the list. We got up to Mario Odyssey, and I'm just going to do it basically counting down and cheating into that a little bit here. Okay, ready? Okay, and I've just got to pick up where I was here. Okay, I'd say my number 9 is Mario Odyssey for Nintendo Switch, and what a year the Switch had when it launched with Zelda at the beginning and then bookended by Mario Odyssey at the end. Incredible stuff, super fun, and kind of a sort of a tip of the cap of admiration for all of the 3D work that Nintendo had done with Mario over the years. It really moved back into Mario 64 territory. And I'm a big fan of the Galaxy games as well. But I don't know. I like this this consistent kind of reveal of new things and new elements in a 3D Mario world, as opposed to the level-by-level kind of structure of Galaxy, which I also really dig. But I don't know. I love Odyssey. And Mario 64 is still one of my favorite games of all time. So that's probably why I love that game so much. Now, another big one is Dishonored, which Arcane made for Bethesda. And I think that was 2012? Or 2012, 2013? I didn't put the dates on this beside me here. But that was a phenomenal stealth action role-playing experience with a really creepy aesthetic and lots and lots of great little details, very nuanced and meaningful fiction. Like this overworld was so rich and filled with things. We actually have a firefighter in the building right now. It's incredible. The world was filled with so much great detail and a nice kind of hybrid with all of the this kind of steampunk aesthetic that they had there. It was really, really incredible. Love that game. Now, there are tons and tons of other titles that I want all of you to consider. There's games like Journey, which came out for the PlayStation, which was a classic, indie title. Mass Effect, that series, and Mass Effect 2 probably kind of was one of the tightest ones of the Mass Effect games. BioShock Infinite has a lot of love out there, and it's deserved. It's an incredible game. Bayonetta 2, also phenomenal. Bloodborne, I know that Scott Jones is, that would probably be pretty high on Scott Jones's list right there. Dark Souls 3, Celeste, if you're into the indie stuff for sure. This year we had Resident Evil 2 and Dragon Quest XI S on Nintendo Switch, both fantastic. I loved Astral Chain. We're going to be hearing about Astral Chain and Fire Emblem Three Houses in our Rocket and Reagan end of the year wrap-up stuff, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. It's kind of interesting. All of these From games are so well regarded that they have to be in the conversation for best games of the decade. And certainly you could throw that title over at games like Overwatch as well, which kind of redefined competitive shooters in a massive way. Also, another fantastic indie title is Inside, and I know I've got a whole bunch of you going, why aren't you talking about The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt? I just did. That's also phenomenal as well. So here is the deal. We are going to determine the nominees for Game of the Decade, Best Action Adventure of the Decade, Best Racing of the Decade, Best Sports Franchise of the Decade, Best RPG of the Decade, and the Game of the Decade. And then we're going to pick all of those winners. I'll put the list together for the nominees, and I'll put it together in printed form so you can take a look at it. Shoot your videos and get them to us, and we'll run those, of the decade vids alongside of our 2019 vids, okay? So all I want you to do is post the link on Twitter or Facebook for, our EP pages, Electric Playground on Facebook, or it's EP Daily TV on Twitter. Put the hashtag Rocket and Ray Guns 2019, and we'll put some of you guys into the show, which I am so psyched for. We'll also have a lot of friends from the creator community, a lot of people that we've worked with, and a lot of people that have some great sites and stuff like that out there. So it's going to be a really, really fun week, starting the week of December 16th. The deadline for all of the videos is end of the day actually, it'll probably be a little bit early, like say noon on Friday next week, noon Pacific time, okay? I'll put all of that stuff into written form so it's easier to digest. So that's a quick overview of some of the games that you should be thinking of for the best of the decade. Okay, now let's take a look back in time for one of my favorite segments of 2019. It is 16-bit superheroes. Today's installment of 16-Bit Superheroes is dedicated to Marvel Superheroes in War of the Gems. This is a Capcom game that I played on the Super Nintendo. I've been sort of dabbling with this title over the many months that I have owned this. I picked this up at one of the expos that I was at earlier this year, and boy, am I glad that I did. This is a terrific game, but it is also one that will challenge you like crazy, so be prepared for that. It is a brawler. Mostly it's horizontal based, but you are going to do some verticality in here as well, so there is a little bit of a platform kind of experience to be had in this title. And it has some clunkiness. It's not perfect by any means, but I love the sprite work in this game. You play as some of the seminal Marvel superheroes, Iron Man and Hulk and Captain America and Wolverine and Spider-Man, basically the heavy hitters. You are going up against Thanos, and Adam Warlock comes in and tells you that the Infinity Gems have been scattered across planet Earth, and you've got to go to all of these different destinations like the Amazon or an aquarium inside of Boston. You've got to go into the Arctic, and you've got to go into Arizona, and you're climbing around inside of Dr. Doom's castle in Latveria. And so you're going to encounter some pretty big heavy hitter enemies in here, of course Thanos, but you're also fighting against evil versions of Marvel heroes like Sasquatch and Puck and Daredevil. All kinds of great variations on Marvel icons, which is terrific. The combat is kind of like Final Fight for the most part. You basically have one attack button and you're kicking and punching with the constant pressing of that, but you can also pull off rotational moves, and you can pick up some power gems along the way and pull off some pretty fantastic hyper moves as well that will fill the whole screen with all kinds of effects. It's a super flashy and super fun title, and the reason why I've been playing all these 16-bit superhero games, it's been one of the most enjoyable things I've done this year, is I've always enjoyed superhero games, but I haven't played them all, and this was one that I never played back in the day, so I've been filling in the gaps. And as enjoyable as this was for me to play, I was also humbled by its difficulty. It took me a while to kind of get all of these rotations. I couldn't ever fully pull off the move that I wanted to pull off every single time. It's a game that you're going to need, and I am going to need to devote serious time to, but it's so good, and it's filled with so many cool, different rewards from the Marvel Universe that you're going to want to stick with it. I am going to want to stick with it. I'm glad that this is in my collection. It's a Super Nintendo game that I know I'll go back to over and over again, just like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time, or Batman Returns. This is terrific. So now I have to score it, but the way that I score these games is not through any kind of rose-colored glasses. It's not about nostalgia. It's how these games play in 2019, how it feels for me to play it today, and I love this game. It kicks my ass, but it's wonderful, and it's gorgeous, and it's filled with great little story bits, too. This is great stuff. I'm going to give Marvel Superheroes and War of the Gems a 9 out of 10. Let's get a little bit more current now, all right? And we've got a review now of Children of Morta for Nintendo Switch. I spent all day yesterday diving deep into Children of Morta. This is from Dead Mage and 11-Bit Studios, and boy, this game is just a wonder. It is a very cool hack-and-slash action RPG with lots of roguelike elements in there. But what's different with this game, as opposed to lots of other fantastic roguelikes out there, is that you are in control of a whole family. Not at the same time. You get to choose different family members. They're kind of like The Incredibles if they were in a fantasy action RPG with swords and bow and arrow and stuff like that. It's a really cool examination of what it takes to survive together as a household. You are in command of this household right on the edge of Mount Morta, and it's been overrun by the corruption, and you've got to fight demon hordes and big spiders and giant creatures and creepy crawlies. Lots of little itty-bitty tiny monsters that will come and bite at your heels. And you've got different weapons and different skills based on each of the family members that you're going to play as. One of them might have a big sword and a shield. One might have a couple of super fast little blades. One might have a bow and arrow. And then they will gain an assortment of magical attacks and rain down sort of, holy hell from above, or have some concussive attacks that follow along with the character as they walk along. Every time that we go back into the randomly created dungeons, which feel very different and like all roguelikes move in different directions with different secrets and surprises, it's a whole new experience and a whole new world. Consequently, you're asked to die often and to learn from those deaths and to level up through those deaths and to take those runs over and over again, but it never, ever felt like work to me. What's great about it, too, is that you can play cooperatively and battle through everything together. It's also a dual-stick combat engine as well, so there's elements of this game that sort of made me feel like I was playing this, fantasy distillation of a Smash TV or something like that. There's also lots of little secrets and surprises. Sometimes you'll get little magical buddies that will follow along with you and take care of enemies with you. You'll augment yourself with these obelisk powers and stuff, so you'll get like extra shield energy or extra health, or you'll attack with poison if you fight the different monsters, and they will sort of be engulfed in that or engulfed in flames or something like that. So rewards aplenty. It's fun to go back into the workshop at home and level up your armor and your attack power and your speed or your precision. There's codexes to find in there, and the lore is deep, so you'll be able to kind of power your magic abilities as well. You're going to be very impressed by the sprite-based, incredibly hyper-detailed visuals of this experience, unbelievably cool backgrounds and environmental art, but also wonderful sprite flourishes and great animations with all of these different characters in their combat cycles, but also when they're getting into their story bits when we're back in the homestead, which I really appreciated. This is an addictive loop that I was completely lost in and wanted to do over and over again. I went to bed super late last night, and I had to force myself to put this game away because it is a hard one to walk away from. It's a phenomenal game, and I think the ramp up on difficulty is incredibly tuned.
The Bergson began to slip away, wondering if this was death
It's a labor of love. You can see it. You can see that it's been refined and tuned, and the fact that it's everywhere. It's on PC, and I played this on Switch, which is a great platform for this game. This is one of the highlights of 2019 for me. I freaking love Children of Morta. I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10. All right, we are going to be playing a Stadia game. Well, it's on PC as well. It hasn't come to console yet. It is Darksiders Genesis, and I don't know who the developer is. I don't have that handy. It's a top-down experience, sort of like a Gauntlet or a Diablo-type game. We're going to load it up right now. Playing it on Stadia, they sent me the code for it, and we had this, Stadia running pretty well last couple of times that we've taken a look at it. So this is kind of the new era. It's honestly, it's a little bit easier for me to bring in this little puck, this little Chromecast, than it is for me to bring in the like a whole laptop or a PC or something like that and set it all up so we can stream. So here we go. Airship Syndicate is the name of the developer. We're going to play it a little bit. I'll play it today. Blake's going to come in and join me on camera here, and he'll field some of the questions, and we'll play a little Let's Play and chat, okay? So come on down, Blake. I played this for a few minutes here before we started rolling. This was the game that I was gonna play, enough of Child of Morta to kind of know how to report on it and shoot that review today, and then start this game yesterday. I never got to this game yesterday. Child of Morta is incredible. It is such an awesome experience, and I just couldn't put the controller down. And I didn't say this in the review. Hello, Blake. But sometimes when you play games, Death Stranding, they feel like work after a little while, and you're trying to get to the thing, you're trying to finish it. There's a compulsion and rewards and stuff, but sometimes it feels a little grueling. Child of Morta does not. You don't want to stop.
Let us know how the audio is in the game.
So in this one, I think I'm playing Strife. Is that who I'm playing? I'm playing Strife. It's the four horsemen of the apocalypse. So we had death, and we had war, and what are the other ones? What was
a lady in the last one, right?
Yeah, I can't remember. I can't
Is this
remember.
one of the characters from the previous game?
I don't have the lore of Death's of Darksiders right now.
Didn't you go to Sunday school, Vic? They taught this in Sunday school.
Until I couldn't handle it anymore. Yes. But I think we're playing Strife right now. So it's a different aesthetic than we've played in previous Darksiders games. I can't answer tons of questions about this because I've just started.
People are saying the sound on the game is low, so I'm going to go turn it up.
Okay.
I'll be back.
All right. Thank you for that, guys. So let's see. Let's figure out what we're going to do. So we're going to do a little bit of combat. I'm not looking at the questions or the comments, so I'm just playing the game right now. But when Blake comes back, he'll keep us posted on what everybody's talking about. I guess I'm in a beat up the bad guys position here. Okay, cool. Looks like this might be some kind of crazy boss or some chest. Okay, it's a huge chest. I had to shoot it to open it. I got the earth splitter, so I got another.
How's the audio now?
Oh, you can play as Strife or War, which is crazy. So you can switch at any time. That's great.
Question, Vic. Do you plan on doing an EP Live across Canada tour in the new year? That's from
who's asking?
Uncle Jay.
I would love to do that. That would be phenomenal. I think the one of the stops that we would definitely have to do, and you can kind of count on this. Our buddies at 8-Bit Beans have opened their video game cafe in Whitby, Ontario. It just opened, but they've got a whole arcade set up and all of their different coffee drinks, including the espresso playground.
And they sell food too. They don't just sell coffee.
Yeah, they sell food and all that stuff. So you can go in and play games and have a meal or have some coffee or whatever. When we get to the Ontario area, we'll definitely be heading there. But I've always wanted to do a little bit of a tour across the country and say hello to everybody. I think it'd be a blast. I can't confirm anything like that right now, though. Good question.
Our buddy Blade Blur has a good question, Vic.
Yep.
He's asking, what is the most disappointing game of the decade?
Oh, man.
It's a hard one.
I mean, the one I'm thinking of is that Contra Rogue Corps that I played this year. That's one of them.
I guess No Man's Sky when it first came out.
You know what? It's Mass Effect Andromeda.
Yeah.
That was such
Or
a
even
massive...
Mass Effect 3.
No, I love Mass Effect 3. I didn't have any issues with, people were all up in trying to get every single ending and all that stuff, and people can complain about whatever they wanted, but there was so much content in Mass Effect 3, and it ran well. Mass Effect Andromeda had massive problems, no pun intended, and then Anthem was kind of another echo of that. I was disappointed with Anthem, but I was severely disappointed by Mass Effect Andromeda, especially because that was supposed to be the next-gen version of what Mass Effect could be.
Hey, Vic.
Yo.
I just had a really good day because I got to block someone in the chat.
Okay.
I love doing that.
Okay.
Please say stupid shit in the chat so that I can block you because I love doing it.
Okay.
It gives me an ultimate power trip.
All right, what's going on? Get any questions?
Andrew Spirell.
Yes.
Question: What will you be playing over the holidays?
Oh man.
Half-Life 3.
I haven't thought that far because I'm in I'm in rocket and ray gun mode right now.
I bought Jedi Fallen Order, so I'm gonna try to get into that more.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind playing that again. That's a very fun game. Okay, so I'm war right now. I thought maybe I'd have to. Thought I was gonna Gooigi it for a second.
We're getting help from the audience, Vic.
All right, cool.
Two things, yeah. Two handles.
So there we go.
What is your, from Sam I Am 111, what are your favorite gameplay mechanics / innovations of the decade?
Ooh.
That's a tough one.
Honestly, I can. I would say that the combat stuff in Arkham was incredible. But that was kind of a 2008 deal, right? So that started with Asylum.
You know what's a
it's
good
just
one?
been refined.
I was looking at Wonderful 101 footage.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool stuff on the Wii U. No one played that console, obviously.
Yeah, I know there was some cool stuff.
There's
for
some
sure.
interesting stuff with the drawing on the screen.
I mean, I think the emergent gameplay in Zelda is pretty phenomenal. I think it's going to be inspirational for a lot of people.
Is that really an innovation, though?
I mean, they carried the baton that Skyrim kind of provided in a way. The grand vistas and the open world and the and then they let people kind of tune it and play it in a more friendly, accessible way through Zelda. That's a great question, Sam I Am 111.
Blair Farrell has a good comment, Vic.
Yeah.
If you liked War of Gems, you should pick up Mutant Apocalypse, if you haven't already.
Mutant Apocalypse, I have that. X-Men Mutant Apocalypse, I think I have that.
I'm assuming that's an X-Men game.
Yeah. I think I've got that, and I will do a 16-bit on that.
Blade Blur, yes, you can send us a video for the Rocket and Ray Gun Awards.
Yes.
We talked about it earlier. I don't know if you were here, but basically make a video, upload it to either like Dropbox or Google Drive or whatever your file hosting site you want.
Also,
and then send us a link on
Discord
Facebook
as
or
well. You can put
Discord,
videos on
sure.
there. Yeah.
Any internet storage site that you want, and send us a link, and we'll use it.
We'll write out all of the categories that we'll need videos for, and feel free to pop them in for whatever ones you want to talk about.
And guys, since I'm going to be editing this, try to make it look and sound at least halfway decent.
Yeah.
Blade Blurs is usually pretty good. There's a couple we got last year that were a little.
Just shoot in a quiet place. You can shoot on your phones though, and just make sure they're in landscape.
But make sure you got some light. Make
Yeah.
sure you're not directly in front of a window, like with a window right behind you.
Yeah, sort
Have
of
the light turn
crazy
around.
echoey room or
If
something.
you have a window behind you, turn around so that the light's hitting your face as
Right.
opposed to. Don't be backlit, is what I'm saying.
Am I going the right way, or am I leaving?
Oh, that's cool. You can just pop your horse up.
Yeah.
So this is Diablo basically, right?
It's.
This game?
I mean, it definitely has the jumping mechanics and the combat of the other Darksiders games. Oh, I've come through here already. So I
Oh, we
hold
should
that down.
mention too.
But it has a Diablo kind of vibe for sure.
We should mention, because we're playing this on Stadia, that this costs. It's a
Oh, yeah.
controversy right now.
Yeah.
It costs $10 more on Stadia than
Which
it does
is-
on Steam or GOG.
Completely ridiculous.
That might be a mistake. Someone made a F up somewhere, or it might be intentional. We don't know, but either way, it's kind of stupid.
Well, I think what it is that there are more established partnerships at the other carriers, other vendors, and they try to undercut everybody as much as they can and give people the best value so that they stay loyal to that system.
So you think Steam had some kind of deal?
Of course, yeah. Yeah,
okay.
they've got legacy kind of retailer relationships
Yep,
there.
yep.
And Stadia's got to build all that. But Stadia's got to be an effortless, better pricing solution for the consumer to make this leap, because everybody's greatest fear is that they're just buying a license. They don't actually own this game. It can't be ported anywhere.
Blair Farrell saying it's also going to be $10 more when it hits the consoles.
Right.
The console version isn't out yet. I think it comes out in February.
Right.
So
yeah, and that's also
so that's why
yeah.
Steam made a deal with that.
And Stadia is kind of pitting itself as more of a console competitor than a PC gaming competitor. But honestly, Stadia's prices should be lower than everybody else's. Even if they're $5 cheaper, that's going to go in a huge direction in the positive category for a lot of people out there. A lot of people are, understandably concerned about the whole business model and the functionality of Stadia. I think it speaks volumes, though, that we're playing fine.
Somebody
right
actually, I was just going to mention, user MH says that he points out probably explains the frame rate. I think saying that he's noticed the frame rate is lower than what he would expect.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if he's trolling or just being funny. It looks fine to me.
It looks fine to me too.
But I've never been a big frame rate guy, so.
I think it's probably locked at 30. I would imagine. I don't know.
I like 30. I like 30 frames per second.
I like
because I like
60.
It looks more movie-like that way.
I like 60 when it works.
John Boko show, Stadia shouldn't exist. It's completely stupid. Look, there's only room for one depressing, cynical person here, and that role is filled. So.
All the new machines are going to be heavy on the streaming and the subscription. Everything from
technology
here on
that's
out.
going to get better.
Yeah.
Nintendo Boy 17 question, Vic. After watching Retro Replay last night, what do you think of Jedi Power battles?
Oh my
Troy
God.
and Noli weren't impressed.
That was. Oh man, I'm trying to remember that game. I don't remember loving it. I can't remember what distinguished it from Masters
Jedi
of
Power Battles.
Terras
Is that the
Kasai.
fighting game?
Yeah.
I have no memory of Jedi Power Battles. Right?
Yeah.
Let me see. Let me jog my memory.
I think I remember the big, giant giraffe-like creature in that game.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's a PlayStation 1 game.
Yeah.
Okay, I remember the cover.
And you play on Tatooine, and remember they CG'd that giant
yeah, there's the cover.
giraffe-type creature, the alien giraffe thing, in Episode 4 when they remastered it.
Do you remember in Solo they had a Masters of Terras Kai reference?
Yes. Attack the soul gate to destroy it, okay?
Rumor or question from What's a YouTube?
Yeah.
What is a YouTube? Well, that's not his question. That's his username.
Yep.
Do you believe the rumor of 2 versions of the next-gen consoles releasing at the same time next year? So we're going to get a PS5 and a PS5 Pro at the same time, he says. But we already know that's happening for real because Project Scarlet has 2 different... hasn't Microsoft confirmed that?
That seems pretty stupid, doesn't it?
But Project Scarlet is rumored to be 2 different things, and I thought that was confirmed.
I've heard the rumor for sure, and it might be all about storage, which is okay. Like if you want different storage, it's like if you get a Mac or a PC with
or it's going to be like
diskless.
One is a diskless version, and the other has.
Could be, yeah.
I think that's what's going to happen with the new Xbox.
But the power should be exactly the same.
Yeah, it should look exactly the same.
Yeah, there shouldn't be better graphics card or something like that.
That would suck. Yeah.
That's getting into PC territory.
How
to
many
launch,
Star Wars
I mean, if you get
games?
into a couple of years of that machine and then you do that, that's okay. But to launch, everybody should be on the same level playing field.
Blair Farrell's asking, how many Star Wars games have there been this decade? Too many.
This decade?
Yeah. Actually, they took a
No,
slowdown
not-
after
yeah,
Disney
not that many.
bought. Yeah, they canceled a bunch, yeah. But there's been so many even still on like mobile and like little.
I know that
pinball games and
the first Battlefront game that
Yeah.
Pandemic made just came to Steam. I saw that on the Steam store. That the Battlefront II, the Pandemic one, had been available for a while, but the first Battlefront game just hit. I've got great memories of both of those games.
They should make more Star Trek games.
They should make a good one.
What is the best Star Wars game of the decade? I guess is it Jedi Fallen Order for you?
Yeah, well, and honestly, Battlefront 2, the one that DICE worked on, after all of its changes and additions and tweaks, it's a great game. It's, I mean, it was a beautiful game to begin with, and the game that they let us play before the game came out, and all of the microtransactions were pushed in to kind of, you know, earn EA tons of money. It was fun. It was just really, really fun and so slick looking. But now it's become a really good game. But I think Jedi Fallen Order is awesome and also amazing that it really is a testament to the, you know, the effectiveness of staying true to you buy the whole thing for the one price.
Honestly, that's like 75% of the reason why I bought the game.
Yeah.
I bought it brand new. I could have waited and bought it used in like, you know, a couple weeks,
Yeah.
but I said, you know what? I want more of these kind of games.
I've got a friend on Facebook that works. I'm not going to name him, but he's in the video game industry. I've known him for years, and he is so anti microtransaction. He sounds like me quite often, honestly, and so anti free to play and all of that stuff that he just made a New Year's resolution. He says that if a game comes out and it has no microtransactions or loot boxes or any of that stuff, he will buy it brand new, and he's making that. To make that statement that he's going to
People think you're trolling with the Battlefield 2 comment there.
Battlefield 2 is fun, guys.
The game is fine.
Yeah.
We're not talking about the microtransactions.
No.
We're talking about the game itself.
The game is fun. And it's gotten better and better as they've invested a lot of money to make it better.
We destroy.
Vic, are you going to stream Battlefront 2 again?
Maybe. I mean, I still have it installed on my X, and I want to play it every once in a while, but I'm always playing the new stuff, right?
Someone's saying Force Unleashed, but that was like 2008.
Yeah, that
Force
was
Unleashed
awesome.
2 sucked.
Force Unleashed 2 was very disappointing. This is pretty cool. Does the frame rate seriously look bad to
It
everybody?
looks fine to me.
I
don't know what people are.
If we're streaming, like, are people on the stream finding it to
Well,
be
I
choppy
think
or
one
something?
guy pointed it out, but I think, you know, I don't know if he was how serious.
I mean, do you want to play it for a second?
Sure.
Yeah, just see if you're having any.
The question just popped up there.
Okay. Bamco has a Singapore branch. I don't know. Oh, question from Sam I Am. What is going on with Bandai Namco Singapore after their last 3 projects have been canceled? Star Wars 1313, Metroid Prime 4, Ridge Racer 8. Man, I can't tell you. I don't know what's happening over there. Wish Force Unleashed got a 3rd installment from John Boko. Me too. Yeah, it would be amazing if Disney could find their way back to some of that stuff. Maybe if EA doesn't want to do anything with some of that back catalog. I don't know why there isn't an X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. Or, you know, there's lots of great games that came out out of the LucasArts era. You can switch between them at any time. But yeah, Force Unleashed is just sitting right there, and I know Sam Witwer would love to jump back into that role, and he killed it. VR X-Wing mission, best Star Wars experience last decade. This is from VR Grid. Yeah, that was phenomenal, and we all want a full game of being able to pilot a VR X-Wing. That would be incredible. Metroid Prime 4 got canceled? No way. That was the Namco. Adrian Leon's asking about that. That was the Namco developed one. Nintendo said it wasn't good enough. They canceled it. Now it's back with Retro. We should probably hear something about Metroid Prime 4 from Retro at E3 next year.
Hey Vic, I just want to have an aside right now. So we have another controller here with 4 buttons that have letters on them.
Yeah.
And there are different layout of letters than the Switch and the Xbox. Because the Xbox, like the X button is in a different spot on this controller and the Switch and the PS4 controller and the Xbox One.
Well, they can't be all different from each other.
But it's like, because A is over here.
Yeah.
This is A and this is B.
Yes, that's
but on the
Xbox-y.
But yeah, but on
This
the
is
Switch, this is B and this is A.
I know, that's confusing.
So every time it says press B, I'm pressing the wrong button.
Yeah. Any way that the video game industry can create a little clubhouse to make it disorienting for somebody else,
Why can't every
they'll
controller
do
be
that.
the same?
And they do it over and over again.
They all look the same.
Yes.
They all look like this. Why can't they have the same button names?
Somebody asked about Vic's Basement. It will return. It probably will return next year. We just don't know when. Can't announce anything just yet, but people keep asking about that. I miss the kind of long form, more focused on audio than trying to set up a big show kind of vibe. But this has been a big project to move EP into this space this year, and I can't believe how many episodes we've done and how many cool guests have come through the space. It's really, really fun. So I hope that you come down and join us at 390 West Hastings and watch the show live and in person.
Don't pull the fire alarm.
Please don't do that. Ali Chedati says, "Hey Victor, do you have any tips for indie developers in regards to getting the press interested?" I think you just are persistent. You got to hit up everybody on, get to know who the individuals are. Recognize that the media jobs are very precarious now in the video game space. So be cognizant of that. And everybody's trying to kind of hang on to employment and figure out what they can talk about. I know that websites are so heavily traffic focused that there's a lot of decisions about, is this going to bring us tons and tons of traffic if we do an article on this stuff? EP doesn't really think about that much, but I don't have the budgets that I used to have to be able to employ a bunch of people and cover everything. I miss that era, and I'm hoping that we return to some of that, because I would love to cover a lot more indie stuff out there. But recognize that a lot of outlets have been trimmed down and a lot of positions have gone away, and indie stuff doesn't always generate the biggest traffic. It just doesn't. So you just have to stay patient and be persistent. I think discoverability in this era of creating anything is incredibly difficult, unless you're making something that has Star Wars or Marvel or DC on the cover. I mean, Martin Scorsese couldn't get his movie financed until he went to Netflix. You know, if that doesn't say something about discoverability and you know, how the business and economics of getting your thing looked at have changed, I don't know what does.
Do you want to know how those meetings went, Vic?
Yo.
They're like, oh, you want to make a movie with Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, and Al Pacino? Great. How much do you want? Okay, but how long is it? Oh, it's 3.5 hours?
I don't think it's that simple. I don't think it's that simple at all.
They're like, 3.5 hours? No, and then
No,
Netflix stepped in.
I mean, there's lots of good big 3.5 hour films out there. Okay, this is it. This is the last question from What's a YouTube. What was better in the 2010s, games or movies? I don't. Yes.
Movies, we got the rise. It depends what kind of movie you like.
I
If
mean,
you like art house, arty-farty stuff,
we
then
got the
it was a bad
MCU.
decade. But that's what I mean. It's
Yeah.
like, when you think of movies this decade, it's mostly been big popcorn stuff. Like
This last decade has been the rise of comic book culture
Yeah.
in Hollywood like I could never have imagined. I mean, I grew up with comic books are a big reason why EP is here. And I remember going to the comic book shop, which is gone now, rest in peace, an amazing store here in Vancouver. And I would just look at the flood of different titles up there and just be overwhelmed. And I, would ask the staff to give me suggestions of what to read. That's what shows and movies are like now. You can surf through streaming platforms or through your cable box or go to the cinema, and it's like a magazine rack filled with comic titles, and it blows me away that we got to that. It's a feast. But yeah, I don't know. I think games always win. Games are always more fun than any other entertainment that we've created so far. Good questions, and thank you so much for watching today, guys. Thanks for playing. Thanks for coming up. Thanks for
having me, Vic. Thanks for coming, everybody. See you
sticking
later.
with us through the fire alarm, which is the first here. Want to wish everybody a very happy weekend, and remember to check all of our social channels. I think the one that you probably want to keep your eyes on is the Facebook page for EP. It's very easy to see it, and we'll put it all nice and clearly up there for you. But please send us your videos with the hashtag Rocket and Ray Guns 2019. We are going to see you on Monday with a brand new episode. We're going to be diving deeper into the categories of the Rocket and Ray Guns and talking about the best stuff that's been out there this year. And we have lots of fun things to talk about, including some new interviews from our Japan trip as well. Have an awesome weekend. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon. And until then, play forever.